Before magnesium pills came into existence, there were already fast-acting solutions for muscle cramps. Unlike modern supplements that require hours to digest, these ancient remedies worked almost instantly. They solved the deep problem that makes your leg twitch and lock without waiting for a mineral to absorb. Roman soldiers crossed empires on foot, standing watch for hours, and hauling equipment through mountains and deserts. They didn't suffer the way we do, because they carried a living pharmacy, roots, and seeds that could stop a spasm in seconds. Today, we open that forgotten medical kit to reveal the tools that kept the ancient world moving. Number 1. Mustard. When a calf muscle seizes into a hard, agonizing knot, waiting for a pill to dissolve is simply not an option. The body demands an immediate abort switch. This is the power of the humble mustard seed, a common pantry staple that functions as a high-speed emergency brake for the nervous system. While modern advice relies on hydration that takes time to work, this ancient remedy bypasses the stomach entirely to speak directly to the spine. The Roman legions relied on mustard seeds in their daily rations, not merely for flavor, but as a vital stimulant to keep the body warm. They valued it as a rube facient, something that brings fire to the surface, to treat the deep stiffness of weary limbs. To them, it was not a condiment. It was a survival tool carried in the pouch of every soldier to ensure his legs would not fail him in battle. Modern science proves the Romans were right. The sharp taste triggers a reflex in the mouth that sends a signal straight to the spine. This effectively reboots the nervous system and releases the locked muscle immediately. It acts like a reset button, halting the spasm instantly. Magnesium takes hours to digest, but mustard works in under 2 minutes by using the nervous system instead of the blood, proving that the cure works through sensation, not digestion. While mustard shocks the nerves to stop the firing, this next root provides the heat needed to sustain the flow. Number 2. Ginger. Gingiber officinale. Some muscle cramps are born from a deep, creeping cold that locks the muscles tight. Ginger is the perfect solution. It's a root that acts as a furnace for the circulatory system. It does not just relax the muscle, it floods the tissue with warmth, ensuring the blood flows freely to the starved fibers that are screaming for oxygen. It targets the specific stagnation that makes a limb feel heavy, brittle, and ready to snap. In the height of the empire, the Romans went to great lengths to import this universal medicine through the spice trade, valuing it highly for its ability to preserve food and the body alike. A Roman physician would prescribe it to warm the stomach and the limbs, recognizing that a cold body is a cramping body. They understood that to stop the spasm, one must drive out the deep chill that locks the joints. The secret lies in the dried root, which concentrates powerful compounds called shogaols that are missing in the fresh plant. These trigger the same instant reflex as mustard to stop the spasm immediately, but they also offer a second benefit. Ginger acts as a potent anti-inflammatory shield, shutting down the chemicals that cause lingering soreness. Magnesium can refill the cell, but it cannot put out the fire of inflammation or force the blood to return to a cold limb. Ginger does both, proving that the most expensive spice in the Roman market was worth every denarius for the relief it brought. Once the blood is warm and flowing, we need a shield to prevent the exhaustion that makes muscles twitch. Number 3. Rue. When an eyelid twitches or a thigh vibrates after a long day, it is a clear signal of a nervous system on the brink of collapse. To stop these repetitive spasms, the ancient world turned to rue, a plant so revered they called it the herb of grace. This is not a culinary herb. It is a specific antidote for the kind of neuromuscular fatigue that leads to uncontrollable shakes and tremors. The Romans planted rue around their temples to ward off the evil eye and the total physical breakdown caused by extreme exhaustion. But its real power was found in the mess hall. Roman soldiers used it as a preventative tonic, infusing their wine with its leaves. They endured its intensely bitter taste because they believed it steeled their nerves against the tremors of battle. To them, it was the only thing that could settle the digestive and muscular convulsions that came from a hard life on the road. Modern science reveals they were right to trust the bitterness. Rue contains powerful compounds that activate potassium channels in the muscle cells. Think of a cramp as a light switch stuck in the on position, causing the light to flicker wildly. Rue physically forces that switch back to off. It resets the electrical balance of the cell, stopping the repetitive firing that keeps the muscle twitching. Magnesium feeds the system, but Rue stabilizes the control panel, proving that grace was actually sophisticated biology. Internal remedies are powerful, but the Roman soldier knew that some battles are won by what you wear on your feet. Number 4. Mugwort. Roman soldier knew that the battle against cramps often began at the point of impact, the feet. When the march was long and the legs grew heavy with lactic acid, they turned to mugwort. This is not a herb you eat for cramps. It is a herb you wear. It bridges the gap between medicine and armor, providing relief through direct contact with the skin. Historical records tell us that Roman centurions would line their sandals with fresh mugwort leaves before a long march. They called it the wayfarer's herb, believing it prevented the fatigue that leads to the crippling leg cramps of the night. It was a piece of practical field medicine, utilized not by the elite in villas, but by the men pounding the stone roads of the empire, who could not afford to fall behind due to muscle cramps. The secret to this trick is in the plant's warming oils. As a soldier walked, the friction and body heat released these oils, which soaked through the skin on the soles of the feet. This helped the blood move more easily and washed away the waste that builds up in a tired muscle. While magnesium tablets sit in the stomach for hours, mugwort works with every step taken. In Eastern traditions, when this same herb is even burned near the skin to drive heat into stiff joints. It has a global reputation for warming up the body and clearing out the cold dampness that makes muscles lock and seize. Circulation in the feet is vital, but if the veins in your legs have collapsed, you need a structural repair crew. Number 5. Butcher's broom. Sometimes the cramp is not caused by weak muscles, but by weak veins. When the veins lose their tone, blood pools in the calves, leading to the heavy, throbbing cramps of the night. This is where Butcher's broom proves its worth. It is the plumber of the forest, focusing entirely on the walls of your veins rather than the muscle itself. It does not just relax the tissue, it fixes the reason the muscle is suffocating from a lack of fresh flow. In ancient times, and this prickly evergreen was known as knee holly, and was essential for soldiers who spent days standing guard or marching. The Romans recognized that some cramps were caused by stagnation, old fluid that refused to leave the limb. They knew that standing still could be just as dangerous as running. By using the root of this plant, they treated the heavy swelling that strangled the legs, ensuring the march could continue the next day without the drag of dead weight. Modern science confirms it works by tightening the smooth muscle of the vein wall, acting like a pump to push blood back to the heart. Magnesium has absolutely no effect on the structural shape of a vein. If your cramps come with swollen ankles or purple lines, the butcher's broom is the only tool that addresses the root cause. While that root fixes the pipes, and this next flower repairs the battlefield damage that causes the muscle to guard. Number 6. Yarrow. Sometimes the cramp is a result of direct trauma, a blow to the thigh, or a Charlie horse that leaves the muscle crushed and bleeding internally. For this battlefield damage, there is only yarrow. Named Herba militaris by the Romans, it is the supreme wound herb, capable of stopping bleeding and resolving the deep bruising that causes a muscle to lock up in pain. While a mineral like magnesium can help a healthy muscle stay relaxed, it cannot clear the physical wreckage of a bruised and damaged tissue. Legend and history tells us this plant was carried by the Roman armies to treat wounds from iron weapons. It was named after Achilles, the famous warrior, reflecting its status as a soldier's necessity. But beyond open cuts, it was applied to deep, painful bruises. The Romans understood that a muscle filled with stagnant, trapped blood would seize up to protect itself. To stop the spasm, they knew they had to clear away the trapped blood and repair the internal damage. To them, yarrow was not just a plant, it was a field medic in a leaf. Biologically, yarrow is a rare wonder. It has the power to stop active bleeding, while also breaking up old, clotted blood that makes a limb feel stiff. Modern studies show it also acts as a natural blocker for the signals that cause a muscle to contract, allowing the tissue to finally relax while it heals. It reminds us that in the rough reality of the physical world, we need a remedy that can knit the flesh back together at the same time it soothes the pain. Yarrow clears the damage, but the inflammation remains, keeping the muscle tender and prone to cramping. Number 7. Willow bark. The cramp might be over, but the battleground of your muscle is still smoking. The knot is gone, but the leg remains tender, sore, and stiff to the touch. This is where willow bark steps in. It does not focus on the spark that started the cramp. It focuses on the damage left behind. While magnesium helps the muscle relax, it cannot fix the bruised, beaten up feeling that lingers for days. Willow bark is the medic that comes in after the fight to cool the inflammation. Ancient history proves this was one of the first true painkillers. Long before modern pills, records from ancient Egypt and Greece, written on old scrolls like the Ebers Papyrus, listed this bark as a primary weapon against pain. It wasn't a food. It was a strong medicine for when the body was screaming. They didn't use it to stop the twitching. They used it to stop the suffering that caused the muscle to lock up in self-defense, guarding. The secret lies in a compound called salicin. When you take it, your body turns it into a powerful agent that is almost identical to modern aspirin. It works by turning off the alarm bells in your tissue that scream for swelling and heat. By silencing these chemical alarms, it allows the muscle to finally let go of its defensive tension. It is slower than a pill from the pharmacy, but it is gentler on the stomach and lasts longer, ensuring the leg doesn't tighten up again just because it hurts. You have repaired the veins and cooled the pain, but if your mind is racing and you cannot sleep, the tension will return in the dark. Number 8. Wild lettuce. For pain that transcends simple soreness, the kind of tearing, blinding agony that brings a person to their knees, standard bark is not enough. This requires the numbing power of wild lettuce. Often called lettuce opium, this plant is a potent painkiller that the Romans used when they needed to sedate the body's pain response without the dangers of stronger drugs. In the Roman world, the milky sap of this tall plant was collected and dried into a substance used to quiet the most severe muscular frenzies. It was the physician's tool for someone writhing in distress. They valued it because it calmed the body without affecting the breath, making it a safer option for quieting a system that was fighting against itself. The ancients needed a way to force the body to stop fighting the pain, and this plant provided the chemical surrender required for healing to begin. This forgotten benefit works through natural compounds that interact with the nervous system to produce a deep, numbing effect. It physically dulls the perception of the cramp, acting like a circuit breaker for pain signals. Magnesium supports basic function, but it does not kill pain. When a cramp becomes a crisis of agony that leaves a person gasping for air, wild lettuce provides the mercy of silence to the screaming nerves, allowing the muscle to finally soften its grip on the bone. Numbing the pain is key, but to stop night cramps permanently, you must force the brain into deep sleep. Number 9. Valerian. Pain often strikes hardest at night, ruining sleep and leaving the muscles deprived of recovery time. To ensure the deep, restorative slumber that prevents nocturnal cramps, the ancients relied on valerian. This is not merely a tea for relaxation. It is a heavy pharmacological blanket that forces the central nervous system to power down and stop sending stress signals to the limbs. The famous Roman physician Galen prescribed foo, as valerian was known, due to its pungent, sweaty smell, for conditions involving convulsions and nervous trauma. He understood that a body which cannot sleep will eventually spasm. The Romans used it to treat the hysterical or overexcited patient, recognizing that the root could chemically dismantle the anxiety and tension that keeps the muscles tight, even when lying in bed. It was the answer for the tired but wired soldier who could not stop twitching long after the march ended. Valerian functions by flooding the brain with its own natural calming signals, effectively acting as a loud shush to a noisy nervous system. It quiets the electrical noise running down the spine, preventing the sudden storm that jolts a sleeper awake with a knotted calf. Think of it as a speed governor on a racing engine. It physically prevents the body from revving up into a spasm. Magnesium acts like a gentle lullaby, but valerian is a heavy steel door closing on the outside world. It enforces a deep chemical rest, leaving the muscles with absolutely no choice but to relax and recover. Valerian sedates the brain, but this next vine turns off the switch directly inside the muscle fibers. Number 10. Hops. Some cramps are caused by a chemical wire stuck in the on position, the signal that tells a muscle to contract. To cut this connection, the ancients turned to hops. Long before it was the soul of beer, the Romans knew hops as a wild, climbing vine that strangled trees. They used this same power to strangle the overactive signals, causing a muscle to twitch. The Romans harvested the young shoots to eat like asparagus, but the true power lay in the sticky flowers. They noticed that workers harvesting the vines would fall into a deep slumber right in the fields, overcome by the potent pollen. This led to the use of hops pillows to cure insomnia and quell the fidgets of the limbs. It was the perfect remedy for the soldier who was physically exhausted, but whose legs would not stop jumping. Modern science confirms that hops extract blocks the specific chemical signals that tell a muscle to tighten. It acts directly on the communication lines. Now, flipping the off switch for muscle firing. This is entirely different from magnesium, which only feeds the muscle. When a leg feels like a twitch that will not stop, hops provides the chemical stop signal the body is failing to send. It acts like a mute button for the muscles, silencing the command to contract so that the fiber can finally enter a state of true chemical silence. Simple twitches are one thing, but for spasms caused by sheer panic and nervous collapse, we need a stronger shock. Number 11. Asafoetida. For spasms driven by nervous tension and stress, we turn to the most pungent remedy in history, asafoetida. This resin was valued for its ability to tame the winds of the body. It acted as the ultimate grounding force for a system that had become too reactive and overwhelmed. The Romans called it laser and treated it as a precious substitute for silphium, a legendary plant they loved so much they ate it into extinction. They added asafoetida to their sauces for flavor, but also prescribed it for convulsions and paralysis. They believed its intense, sulfurous odor, which earned it the name devil's dung, had the power to physically shock the system out of a spasmodic state. They saw it as a way to snap the mind and body back to reality, forcing a release when the nerves were overstimulated. Modern study shows that asafoetida relaxes muscles by blocking the chemical switches that trigger tension. It is one of the most potent tools for cramps caused by nervous stress or digestive distress, working faster than magnesium in these cases. It acts on the deep connection between the stomach and the spine, ensuring that stress in the gut does not travel to the limbs. Its effect is total, calming the internal winds and proving that the medicine that smells the strongest often provides the deepest relief. Nervous tension causes some cramps, but others are purely mechanical locks that require a physical key to open. Number 12. Cramp bark. Sometimes the cramp is not a twitch or a nervous flutter, but a hard, physical lock. The muscle seizes and refuses to let go, like a rusted hinge. For this mechanical failure, we need cramp bark. Known in Europe as the Gelder rose, this shrub provides a direct chemical release for skeletal muscle that minerals simply cannot achieve. While the name cramp bark comes from later traditions, the plant is native to the lands the Romans conquered and inhabited. It has been a folk remedy for centuries, used for the most stubborn, rhythmic spasms, from menstrual pain to the locking of the back. The ancients did not use it to nourish the muscle. They used it to force it to yield. It was the heavy artillery for a body that had turned against itself, specifically indicated when the muscle felt hard as stone and refused to soften with massage or heat. The bark contains unique compounds that act as a physical key to unlock the frozen fiber. It works by stopping the flow of calcium into the muscle cells, which is the exact fuel a muscle needs to squeeze. Magnesium acts as a background helper, but cramp bark acts as the hand that pulls the plug. When a muscle is stone hard, this is the chisel. It doesn't ask the muscle to relax. It chemically disarms the locking mechanism, providing relief when the body is in a state of physical crisis. If the lock is deep in the chemistry of the cell, you need the master code to reset the connection. Number 13, peony. Deep within the muscle, the balance of calcium is what dictates the contraction. If cramp bark is the key, peony is the master code. Named after Paeon, the physician to the Greek gods, this flower was revered in the classical world not for its beauty, but for its profound ability to stop tremors and convulsions. The ancient physicians used the root of the peony to treat falling sickness and the violent jerking of limbs. It was considered a magical protector, often worn as an amulet, but its decoction was a serious medicine. They recognized that peony had a specific affinity for the knotted muscle, capable of soothing the deep electrical faults that caused the body to shake uncontrollably. They trusted it for the kind of spasms that felt like a seizure, where the control of the limb was completely lost to a chaotic internal storm. We now know that peony works by acting like a traffic controller for calcium. Calcium is the fuel that makes a muscle tighten, but if too much rushes in at once, the muscle locks up. Peony prevents this sudden flood. It fixes the connection point between the nerve and the muscle, ensuring the command to move doesn't get stuck. This is why it works for people with severe medical cramps when magnesium fails completely. It proves that the problem isn't always a lack of vitamins. Sometimes it's a broken signal. Peony repairs the signal, ensuring the muscle knows exactly when to let go. Chemical balance is crucial, but sometimes the cramp in your leg comes from a misalignment in your spine. Number 14, malign. Cramps in the legs are often just a symptom of a misalignment higher up, in the spine. To address the structural root of the problem, the Romans used malign, known as the candlewick plant because its tall, fuzzy stalks were dipped in tallow to make torches. Mullein was also a remedy for the structure of the body. Roman soldiers and laborers, prone to back injuries from heavy lifting, utilized the root of mullein for spinal distress. They believed it helped align the body, soothing the deep muscles along the spine that, when tight, pull the vertebrae out of place and send shooting pains down to the legs. It was a structural remedy for a structural problem. They did not treat the leg in isolation. They treated the central pillar of the body, understanding that a twisted back leads to a twisted gait and a cramping calf. Modern research proves this works by relaxing the deep muscles that run along the spine. When these muscles loosen up, they stop pinching the main nerve that travels down to the legs. Magnesium relaxes the muscle fiber, but mullein aligns the frame. It targets the body's structure, ensuring that the wires sending signals to the legs are not being crushed by a tight back. It proves that sometimes the solution to a leg cramp lies in the backbone, not the calf. When structure, chemistry, and nutrition all fail, we must open the shadow box for the nuclear option. Number 15, henbane. This remedy is used when all others fail. Henbane is the nuclear option, a toxic, foul-smelling plant associated with the underworld. It was nevertheless a crucial tool in the Roman surgeon's kit for its ability to induce a state of twilight and absolute muscle flaccidity. Known as an ancient anesthetic, henbane oil was applied to areas of excruciating pain. The Romans respected its power and its danger, knowing the line between relief and death was very thin. But for a soldier with a cramp so severe it threatened to snap a bone, henbane was the mercy they prayed for. It was not a daily supplement. It was a crisis intervention used only when the body was destroying itself. The physicians knew that this plant could silence the body's screams when nothing else in nature could. Its power comes from its ability to completely block the signal that tells a muscle to move. While other herbs might lower the volume on the nerve, henbane cuts the wire. It creates a total blockade, forcing the muscle into a state of deep, heavy relaxation, whether it wants to or not. While magnesium feeds the muscle, henbane paralyzes the command to contract. It is a reminder that the ancients possessed agents of immense power, effective, dangerous, and demanding of respect, that make our modern supplements look like simple candy. Long before modern medicine pressed magnesium into a white pill, Humanity had already solved the problem of the spasm. We simply chose to forget. It is a historical fact that the Roman legions marched across the known world, covering thousands of miles without the luxury of electrolyte powders or sports drinks. Yet, they did not collapse. They did not fail. Why? Because they carried the cures in their pouches and wore them in their sandals. They understood that the earth provides a specific key for every lock in the human body. These plants are not new discoveries. They are ancient technologies that kept empires moving. They are still growing today, waiting for us to stop relying on the pharmacy and remember the power of the field.